President Jacob Zuma and some 320 business people visit China this week to try and improve economic relations between the two countries. Understand the Chinese way of doing business becomes all important. In particular, some of cultural nuances which can either make or break a deal. CNBC Africa's Cape Town reporter Talia Sanewe found out what some of these subtle differences are and what African companies need to look out for when doing business with China.
When it comes to doing business with China, there's one thing you'll need to learn quickly, and that's guanxi, the delicate art of mixing business with pleasure. Directly translated, guanxi means relationships or network. And those in the know say that by understanding what guanxi is could mean the difference between a signature on the dotted line or not. Every year, China does over $100 billion worth of trade with Africa. So if you want a piece of the Chinese pie, make sure you watch your table manners.
The meaning of the word is much more than just relationship or network or business partner that we use in the West. The main difference is the personal level of guanxi. In China, friendship, family and business are totally interwoven.
Superstition plays an important part in Chinese culture, particularly when it comes to numbers, so it's vital to get all your checks and balances in order.
A lucky number is the number 8. That's also why the Chinese Olympic Games started 8 minutes past 8 at the 8th of the 8th month in 2008. That number shows strength, eternity and friendship. However, the number 4 has the same pronunciation in Chinese as depth.
When giving gifts to the Chinese, the wrapping truly is as important as the gift itself, in particular the color you choose. The preferred color to wrap presents is red, a symbol of celebration and vitality. Yellow or gold are also second choice because it symbolizes prosperity. A color to avoid, however, is white, the color of death.
But the color white is used for funerals in China. So if you give a gift with a white ribbon, it will remind them of a funeral. And still, probably they won't blame you, but it's, again, that kind of negativity that you bring in, but you don't want to.
At a boardroom level, gender representation is equal in China, although men are more often the ones who sign the deals. However, a woman's presence at the boardroom table should not be underestimated.
There's the risk of underestimating Chinese women who are also sitting at the negotiation table, because the business culture is kind of man culture. The women let the men talk and do the business, so they're quite quiet. But if you don't think that these women are not important, then you make a huge mistake.
Our focus today is of course on China, with South Africa's biggest ever business delegation accompanying President Jacob Zuma on his state visit to that country. One company that is establishing partnerships with the Chinese is Mulilo Renewable Energy, and its CEO John Callum joins us now from our Cape Town studio. John, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Stephen.
Well, John, you've signed a number of memorandums of understanding with Chinese companies for the development of wind projects here in South Africa. Why China?
I think that we went to China, Stephen, based on the cutting-edge technology that China's got at the moment. And in addition to that, we also thought that South Africa would have a lot to learn from China in the way of doing business, and also in the way that they've helped the ordinary people in the country. Also, obviously, China avoided the worst of the recession, and I think that the Chinese banks and the Chinese government have got a lot of access to capital at the moment, and they're wanting to expand into Africa and the rest of the world.
Okay, so really expertise and also capital being invested in some of your projects then, John?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's what we're doing at the moment, Stephen. Yeah.
What sort of stakes are you giving those Chinese investors in your projects? Are we looking at 50-50 joint ventures? Are they minority shareholders? We're basically involved in a joint venture on the development of wind projects with China Guodin. That's one of the big 5 corporations, the power corporations in China, and they've got a 51% stake in our company. And we're involved with a company called Yingyi Solar on solar energy, and they've got a 30% stake in the company, with the China Africa Development Fund, which has got a further 30%. How do you manage relationships with these Chinese partners? Because of course there are cultural differences between South African businesses and Chinese businesses, and I think business really is just done in a different way. Has this been a problem for you? Has it been quite easy to break in? Stephen, we've been at this for about 3 years now, and I think it took us a while to get used to the way of passing business cards around and the gifts and the table manners and the seating arrangements and all this, the colors and all the other things that go with Chinese cultural things. But I think we've got the hang of it, and at the moment we've got Chinese personnel from our partners in the office, and to assist with the language and writing barriers, we've got Chinese secretaries and interpreters which we've employed to assist us with that.
Well, of course, you've qualified for several energy programs, such as the Medium-Term Power Purchase Program, that's an ESCOM program, also the multi-site base load program. What sort of assistance do you get on those programs locally, and how do you balance it with the international assistance you get from countries like China?
I think we've had limited assistance locally, because most of the projects in the renewable side haven't taken off yet. But we've obviously had financial assistance from our local shareholders, and we've had huge assistance from our Chinese partners in terms of technological assistance and capital as well. Much of the monitoring and the advice and help we're getting at the moment with assessing our projects and the feasibility of our projects and organizing the bankability of our projects is being done by our Chinese partners in China.
Well, perhaps talk to us about the feasibility of these projects, when we could see them coming on stream, and also just the value of developing renewable energy like wind power in South Africa.
I think in terms of program, when the projects will start coming on track, we're hoping towards midway through next year, most of these projects will start coming on track. And I think that there's huge value for the country in developing these projects. Obviously, South Africa's got a large carbon footprint, and it's very important for us to develop our renewable resources. And I think in terms of developing a renewable sector for South Africa, it potentially can be a huge sector for growth and the provision of employment in South Africa, and also the improvement of the South African technology and production facilities.
Of course, last year Mulilo was also part of a consortium that was looking at a greenfield coal operation up next to the Valley Cooking coal plant up in Limpopo. Is that something you're still pushing onward with as well?
I think we've been concentrating on our efforts where the market's going, Stephen. At the moment, the market is going towards the renewable sector, and I think that's where we've been concentrating most of our efforts.
And to what extent is it important to have diversified energy supplies? Because I'm thinking back to Kenya, which uses mostly hydrocarbons for electricity. They had a drought last year, which of course impacted on electricity supply. So to what extent do countries have to diversify their energy sources?
I would say that the country should diversify the energy resources as far as possible, and that obviously goes around the economics of what the cheapest energy resources in the country are. For example, in South Africa, because of there's not that many rivers, the hydroelectric resources would be very limited. The wind is very good in South Africa, and they've got a very advanced grid system, so wind would probably be a resource where a larger amount of renewable energy could be produced. But certainly I think any renewable energy resource, if there's a potential for it and it can be a positive contribution to the country, it should be supported and certainly researched.